Hello humans, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, we shape and polish gemstones using a dremel. If that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing. Today we're going to be working on these two beautiful Australian opals. And the first one here is from Cooper Pedy. It's got some beautiful color bars running through it, and it should be pretty good cut, hopefully. As you guys can see, there's that green color bar and that kind of reddish color bar, so it should be interesting. And then we have our Lightning Ridge dark opal here, and you guys can see that this one has one solid color bar running through it with some good blues and greens in it. There's a lot of dirt going on, and it doesn't look like that potch goes across the entire back of it, so this should also be an interesting cut, and we'll see if it works out. When we weigh them out, the first one, the white opal, weighs 1.68 carats at the beginning, and the Lightning Ridge opal weighs 7.65 carats. When we shine the flashlights through them, you guys can see that the Cooper Pedy opal here is pretty clean. There's a little bit of dirt, and it's totally surface level, and it doesn't look like there's any cracks in it at the moment. And when we shine the flashlight through the Lightning Ridge opal, you can see there's a little bit of breakup in the color bar. It doesn't shine completely through in all the spots, and it looks like there could be a crack right there. So we'll see how that goes when we measure it. The Cooper Pedy opal is 12.2 by 8.37 by 3.55 millimeters tall. The Lightning Ridge one is 12.15 by 19.26 by 8.7 tall. So if you guys want to see how these opals get shaped and polished, and if they turn into beautiful gems or it's a bust, stay tuned. So I have the light opal from Cooper Pedy here, and then I have my dark opal here from Lightning Ridge. So the one thing that these both have in common is that the color is pretty phenomenal. I don't have very many Lightning Ridge opals, but these two have some of the very best color of the ones that I have, of a handful of Australian opals that I have. The light one, the color bar very much goes all the way around. It looks like the entirety of the piece has color bar running through it, but it looks like there could be like some milky material blocking off the color for both sides, some potch. And originally with this one, as you guys can see, it has this broken sharp jagged part right here. That is because this had a crack running through it right there, and I broke it off with my fingers when selecting this to shape the video today. So this stone could have the potential to crack or craze. It could, like, I could shape it, and then when it's chilling out, it could crack. Things can go wrong at any minute, so you always want to be on your toes when you see something like that. And also this one, when I shined a flashlight through it, I saw some cracks or sediment running through it. And so whether it be cracks or sand or sandy cracks, it could craze, it could not work out as well. So if one of them is gonna work out, I think it would be the light opal. If one of them is going to work out, I would want it to be the dark opal. Obviously, it's a Lightning Ridge dark opal. Of course I want that one to be the one that works out. So hopefully they could both work out, but there's the possibility that neither of them could work out. We could have two successes or we could have two failures. So there is that. So I'm crossing my fingers. I'm gonna try to be very careful with them as much as possible, but sometimes things just don't work out. So I don't have my hopes up super high, but I am, of course, hopeful. And we'll just have to wait and see how it turns out. The tools I will be using in this video are this 110 diamond centered bit from Suva Lapidary, as well as my 4 Nova points, also from Suva Lapidary. And I will also be using these diamond lapidary pastes that I got from Kent Supply, as well as my felt polishing tips from Amazon. And for safety, I will be wearing this dust mask as well as some glasses to protect my eyes, and if you have long hair like me, you'll probably want to keep that back in a hat. So I started off working on my Cooper PD Opal, taking down the edges of the stone. Now I could have went with more of a rhombus shape, but I decided to go for a oval because I felt like if I went with a rhombus shape, there's just too much of a possibility of me dropping it and then it falls on one of those sharp corners and it just cracks and shatters, and I'd like to avoid that. So I went for an oval, starting by shaping down all the sides to get them nice and flat and even to get a relatively pleasing shape. I mean, we're going to be doing a lot more shaping on this, but the first thing that I always do is just make sure that the sides are kind of how I want them to be, and it's a personal preference, but I do this before I expose the color bar because, you know, you can always figure out which side you want to be the face. So this is what it looks like. You guys can see that it's pretty round, the color bars are pretty untouched there, and it's looking pretty good at this point. So I started trying to expose those color bars, and I went and worked on the side that had the red first, and I'm working in circular motions and I'm being careful because there are peaks and divots on both sides, and I don't want to file down into those divots. So I kind of started at the very edges and worked my way towards the middle, doming as I go, because you can just flatten out and expose the color bar and look at it and be like, wow, look at that good clean color bar. But if you dome it as you're going, then in the long run you won't lose quite as many carats as you would if you kind of flattened it out, made it really flat, looked at it, and then started shaping the face and curving the edges, if that makes any sense. So when I was working on it, it looked like both sides were really beautiful and both could be a really good face. You had the green and yellow kind of mossy side, and then you had the nice broad red side. And as you can see, I tried to double side it so that both sides were possible to be the face, but when I shined a flashlight through it at this point, as you guys can see, kind of in the corner there, a crack started forming in on the side of the stone where it had the green pattern. So I went and I started working on my dark opal here, and again, just like the last one, I took in the sides of the stone first, but the difference between the two of them is on the last stone, the color bar kind of went through the entirety of the stone. This stone has such a thin color bar that I was trying to expose it from the potch at this point. So I was going around the sides, seeing kind of what I could work with, because in some parts of the stone, the color bar is really thin. And then on other parts, it's nice and thick, so I was like, I know that there's something in there, hopefully. And on kind of the part of the stone where it came to sort of a point, there was a little bit of a color bar there originally, but then as I kind of brought it in a little bit, that color bar went away, so I really had to take that down quite a bit. And as I was doing that, I decided I really wanted to expose the color bar in the face before I got the shape on this particular stone, because I don't know what I'm working with. I don't know if there is potch running through the middle of it or what's going on, so I really wanted to see where the best color was, if the color bar expanded across the whole stone, if there was dirt running through it, and just how we could work it and make it the best, most pleasing shape that we could. And once I filed down the entirety of the dirt there, well, not all of it, but you could see that there is a little bit of dirt that is reaching into the color bar. And there's still a little bit of a milky skin across the face of it. But these dirt spots really worried me. And so I just started continuing to bring down the face until I felt like I was getting close to getting rid of those dirt spots, because I know from watching other people that those dirt spots can run all the way through and just totally destroy your stone. Maybe not destroy it, but you'll have to cut it up into other pieces. So this is what it looks like once I got the kind of milky skin off of it. And you guys can see that that dirt is still running through it pretty bad. It was really worrying me. So I kind of started bringing in the sides and filing down the back. I got rid of a lot of the potch on the back because the potch came to such a point that it was, you know, super unreasonable to try to hold on to any of that. I wanted the biggest face that I could get, and that meant sacrificing the potch on the back of the stone, because the potch only went across half of the back of the stone, and the other half, you know, went crystal. So I just brought in the sides to try to get as much of a good shape as I could, but also there was some potch that was reaching up a little bit higher over in that part that I had the issue with the potch earlier. So the color bar right there was like super thin, like ultra thin, whereas on the rest of the stone it was relatively thick. So I kind of just brought the sides in, started doming it, and started flattening out the back. There was a lot of dirt going on the back as well, and that, you know, also made me worry that maybe that dirt was reaching all the way through the stone. So here you can see that the dirt's kind of coming out, but there's a lot of dirt in the back, and that potch that was reaching up towards the color bar. So I continued just kind of bringing in the sides, doming it a little bit, and as I was taking down the color bar on the one side with the more potch on it, it was totally disappearing into that potch. So I had to bring in the sides a little bit more, and as I was doing this, the dirt pretty much totally came out of the face of the stone, which was a huge breath of fresh air. I was pretty worried at this point that I had made the wrong call, and that I shouldn't have brought it in and made it ovular, because maybe I needed to slice it along those dirt spots to get the pleasing stones, but it turned out to work out pretty good. Once I got that dirt out, I started working on the dirt on the back, because I know how dirt can compromise the structural integrity of a stone. So this is it. Once it got pretty clean, you can see it's not super domed yet, but I have most of the dirt out of the back. So it is time to move on to my Nova point, which is where I was on the white stone here, trying to get out that crack. So in reality, instead of just going straight from seeing that crack into shaping the dark stone, what I actually did was I switched the bits immediately as soon as I saw that crack and started filing it down, because I wanted to get rid of it, but I didn't want to get rid of too much of that green color bar, because it was my preferred color bar. While both sides were beautiful, I really wanted to make sure that I was able to save some of that, and luckily I was. So I moved on to the darker crystal stone here, and everything's going good. There were no cracks in the lightning ridge stone, which originally I thought that there would be, but there wasn't. It was just that dirt that was sitting inside that color bar, and I was able to get a nice little puck out of it. So for both of these stones, I am doing a lot of the doming here on these first two Nova points, as I usually do, and I noticed that the color in the white opal was a lot brighter as a rough piece, and before I took down the red side as much as I did, I felt like the color was a lot brighter. So maybe as I was working on it, I was grinding through that color bar and getting rid of the color, and you know, that was a bit of a mistake. But as far as the dark opal here goes, I could have been a little disappointed that I didn't have potch reaching across the entire back of it, but I really ended up liking the look of the potch kind of swirling on the back and then having the crystal section of it. I felt like it added a lot of depth and interest to the look of the stone, so I was pretty happy with that overall. But when I was working on these opals, I kind of made a conscious decision to not dop them as I was working on them through the polishing pastes, because I felt like if I were to dop them with the way that this white opal was acting before, with that little crack forming, I really didn't want to risk any dramatic temperature differences, because I felt like it would be a little bit extra sensitive to that heat that would produce. So I didn't dop them, and I did them entirely by hand. And I felt like when I was working with them, especially the white stone, like I was dropping them a lot, and as you guys will see here, from here on through the polishing process, I was dropping them pretty much constantly, and I did leave in all that footage. I know that in old videos I would set aside all the points where I dropped the stone and I would plop it at the end of the video, but I didn't do that here, and you guys will just kind of have to see that as it happens. But that being said, since I have my trusty sheet out on everything behind me, I didn't end up losing them, and I was able to find them every time, and that's always really positive and nice when that happens. But also, I'm kind of like, you know, when I drop them, I kind of see where they're going, so it's not so frustrating. But sometimes when you drop them, they do totally vanish from your vision, and it's hard to tell where they went, and it can take a little bit longer. But that did not happen with these guys, luckily. And no extra cracks ended up forming either, which was pretty nice. I was really enjoying working on these because I really enjoy working with Australian opal, because while sunstone and moonstone are beautiful, I feel like they don't have nearly as much magic and wonder to them as Australian opal does. And I really like working on a stone and not having to wait several days for it to dry out like Ethiopian opal. It's really nice to just work on a stone and be able to polish it that day without any worries of the water evaporating out of it. So I had a really good time working on these, even though I had, you know, a few bumps here and there, but it's really okay to have a few bumps because it's all about the journey. And so this is what the stones looked like when I finished the Nova Points, and you can see that there's pretty good color there, and the polish is alright, but it's not like peak polish quite yet. At this point, the white one weighs 0.57 carats. And then this is the dark opal, and you can really see here how that finish is pretty decent, but I would not at all call it a finished finish. And it is 1.29 carats, so we were able to keep it together, you know. At this point, there's not going to be a whole lot more carat loss going on. It's just all about making sure that we got all those scratches out and making sure that they are as beautiful as possible. And I really enjoy doing this with the felt tips, but you can do this any way that you're most comfortable with. This is just the way that I'm most comfortable with, is with the lapidary paste. And when you are going out to select some felt tips for polishing, whether you're doing it with cerium oxide or with the polishing paste like I am, or, you know, some other kind of oxide, it's good to go for a more firm kind of a felt tip, because they will hold together for longer. But something to keep in mind about a really firm kind of felt tip is that as you're running your stone on it, it kind of has a little bit more of a vibration thing going on while you're working with it. But when you have a felt tip that is too soft, the felt just totally fluffs away, and not only does it not last that long, but also sometimes they can fluff up so much that it can make it a little bit hard to see what you're doing because you're distracted by the little floaty fluffy pieces in the air. So definitely try to get something firmer if you can help it. But like I've said before, I got these on Amazon. I just kind of picked out the tips that I liked the best and went with it, and I've been using some of them for years. Like this one here, I remember switching out like 2 years ago, and it's still pretty much like new, it feels like. And this one here, you can see it's on its last legs. This is actually the last moment of life for this felt tip. And this was one of the fluffier ones, but you can see here, I shouldn't have been using it in the first place. But yeah, that tip totally came off, so I switched it out with this one. And this one is one of the firmer ones, and it, it did a pretty good job. But with the vibrations running through the stone from the hardness of the felt tip, and you can see that the tip is super secure, and it itself isn't vibrating. It's just the stone running across it. It did make it really hard to hold on to these stones at this point. Another reason to adopt. Another thing is I find that the shape of the felt tip for me really does matter. So when you are working on like a larger stone or something that's a more of a amorphous freeform shape, and you're using your dremel with your hands, the point on the felt tip is really convenient for getting into those little divots when the stone isn't, like a perfect cab. You need something to get into those little spots to get your little pockets polished out. But for me, I don't really do freeform shapes that often. I actually can't think of a time that I have. I do like the look of it. I always love when somebody's able to save the most amount of carats possible, but I like to make stones for jewelry, so I don't end up doing those sorts of things. I always end up making it into some sort of a cab. So I find that the tip that has the abrupt stop, that has those sharp edges at the end of the tip, work a lot better for me versus these tapered tips like the ones you're looking at right now. Because when I'm working with a really small stone, like this white stone, I can utilize the bluntness of that tip, and I can have my finger a lot closer to the stone and to the tip of the bit, versus when it's more tapered, I really have to use more of the middle of it. But the blunter end just makes it so easy for me to use the end of it, and I really do want to get more felt tips that shape. The reason why I use these tapered ones is because it's really all that I have left. I went through all my blunt tip, square tip ones first, and so this is just what I have. But I just want to throw that out there, that if you're going to try to make cabs like me on the Dremel, the blunter tip is really my preferred, and it's all up to you and the kind of shapes that you like to create, and really how you hold the stone, because everybody holds a stone different, just like everybody holds a pencil different. Everybody has a different kind of handwriting. Everybody's gonna have a different kind of technique with the shaping, so it's all up to you and your methods. Alright guys, so these are the finished opals. This is the light opal here. You can see that it's got some pretty alright color there. And then we have our crystal dark opal, which is totally beaming with those greens and blues. Really happy with the polish on this and the way that it turned out. when we weigh them out, the white opal is 0.57 carats, and the crystal opal comes out to 1.28 carats, and when we measure them, the smaller opal is 7.48 millimeters by 6.03 millimeters by about 1.88 millimeters tall, and the bigger opal is 12.05 millimeters by 7.3 millimeters by 1.86 millimeters tall. So, in the end, for the white opal, we ended up losing a total of 1.1 carats. It's a lot more than half of it, but, you know, that happens, and that's just the way that it goes, and I think that it turned out beautifully. I'm really happy with the shape and the polish on it, and you know, I'm happy that I was able to get a opal out of this at all, considering the crack that was going through it. And for the crystal opal, I ended up losing a total of 6.37 carats, which is most of it, but, you know, when you think about it, it had all that potch going on, and that dirt as well, so I'm pretty happy with this piece that we got here. I feel like it could have made a really good doublet, but I'm also really happy with the crystalness of it. I like the color flash is really nice and bright. It's a nice kind of like mossy, grassy pattern, and really get colors from all angles, so I really couldn't be more pleased with the way that it turned out. And, you know, that shape, it's a pretty gosh darn great shape, all things considered. Alright guys, so I wanted to go over my final thoughts on these two Australian opals that I shaped today. As far as the Cooper PD opal goes, I feel like in the beginning I didn't have my hopes up very high for it. I thought that there was a high possibility that it wouldn't work out because the crack formed in it before I cut it. And then as I was cutting it, as you guys saw, there was that crack that formed on the greener, mossy pattern side of the stone, which really got my heart racing. I was really scared that it was going to just start running through really rapidly and that I wouldn't be able to save it. But somehow, some way, I managed to get that one to work. So, very happy about that. My favorite part about that opal is that on the greener mossy side, it almost looks like there's kind of like a tree on it, and that's really cool. Also, I like the way that the red catches on the face. You know, it may not be the brightest. It may not even be as bright as it was as a rough piece, but hey, you know, I'll take it. It's still pretty gosh darn nice, and I think that the shape ended up really well. Though if I were to set this in jewelry, even though the green side is the cooler side and the brighter side, I would have to probably set it with the red part as the face because it has such a higher dome than the other side, which is probably my least favorite part about that stone, is that I wasn't able to get a high dome on the green side because that crack formed. As far as the Lightning Ridge crystal dark opal goes, my favorite part about it is how bright the colors are, because originally, when looking at it from the side, I thought that the colors weren't going to be that bright, because usually, from what I've seen in opals, the color that reflects from the side of the color bar is oftentimes more bright than what you end up facing it as. So the fact that the only part that I was able to make the face ended up being a lot brighter than the side of the color bar is a huge win. I am very happy with that. I'm very happy with the amount of carats that I was able to save on it. You know, it was 7 carats in the beginning, but I was able to save like more than a carat. You know, maybe not been 2, but I mean, with that thin of a color bar and with all the dirt that was running through it, I really considered it a huge success. and the fact that I was able to get all the dirt out of it is great. I also love how on the back of that stone, it has like that little wavy line that goes right next to where the pouch sits. I think is a really special stone, and of course I haven't cut very many Australian opals because I don't have very many. But man, that one is so good. It's such a winner. I'm very happy with it. Alright guys, and now it is time to announce my giveaway winners. Thank you to everyone who entered the giveaway. I'm gonna be putting the winners' names up on the screen next to the amount that the particular piece actually weighed. And congratulations to all of you guys who won these. I'm gonna reply to your winning comment asking for an email so that I can get an address to ship these on out to you guys. Thank you everyone who has entered, and I will be having another giveaway at 800 subscribers. Thank you guys for watching this far. If you have, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button if you haven't liked the video already. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. I know over 80% of you aren't. Share this with a friend if you have a friend to share this with, and you can help make our community bigger and stronger. And I'll see you guys next time that I post a video. Later!